Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspired podcast, and welcome back to a new episode. Please visit spiritualinspired.ca and support the channel by donating at that website. My guest today is Leah Guy. Leah, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are an author, a healer, an accomplished artist. And in fact, I look at your artwork and I love it. It's very diverse. Did it emerge from a desire of expressing your spiritual side?
I would say my spiritual side, but and my emotional side, which I guess one could say they are the same thing. But yes, my paintings and my art, music or paintings come from just a need to let it out, and create something.
Interesting. Yes, I think at one point in our life, each of us will look for that outburst of creativity, either in writing or painting or music. And in your case, I think it was multiple outbursts in various fields. So that's amazing.
Thank you. I do. I feel like when people ask me what I do, I feel like I'm a producer that, you know, all the energy, I just like to produce. I like to produce ideas and content and visuals and music and all kinds of different things.
Yes, I'm in a similar mindset. I mean, I'm a content creator through my books, through this podcast. Recently, I'm taking on a musical challenge for myself, which I didn't expect a month ago. So I am challenging myself every day to learn new things and engage with interesting individuals like yourself.
That's great. Yeah, I think we keep expanding and evolving, and that's fulfilling to our spirits for sure.
And did you step on your spiritual path at an early age or later in life?
It was early age. In fact, I remember when I was very young having a connection to angels and God and just a different sense of things, an intuitive sense. But then, like other people probably can relate, I stepped off of that path for a good amount of time and kind of had my party days and just wasn't focused or concerned about really anything spiritual. But then found my way back, thankfully.
And that was through guidance or just you deciding that the party is over and now you have to get serious with life?
It was mostly because of traumas that I had in my life. And those traumas kind of brought me to my knees, if you will, in both the literal sense as well as just knowing that I had to kind of course correct and get some assistance and support in my life and make some changes for myself. So even still, I was pretty young at that age in my 20s, but that was the impetus.
Yeah. And Leah, it's during other interviews, there's a lot of mentioning about childhood sexual abuse, and you mentioned trauma. Um, do you think, or what do you think triggers such despicable behavior in adults? I mean, we have a lot of sex child trafficking rings all over the world. They're being exposed. Why this deviant mindset?
Well, I think we've all heard that saying, hurt people hurt people. And depending on the degree and the environment of one's upbringing, their history, I think psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, we can get very twisted inside about what we're doing with our energy and our time. And, for some people, it may seem like a conscious act, but I feel like it's really an acting out of the pain, and it drives people to do all kinds of despicable things, crazy things. But we all have the capacity for that, and I think that's one of the things to remember on our healing journey and on our desire to stay conscious and to stay present is so that we can bear witness to how we're actually feeling and doing in the moment and not go too far off of our center. The people that behave in those kinds of ways that are outrageous, I mean, it's it's unbearable to think about what's going on for a lot of people. And as I often say, there's a tremendous number of people having a war inside of themselves, just like the wars that we're witnessing in other parts of the world. That same war is happening internally. And I think that's what's going on.
And do you also think that is a way of overpowering others when we are impotent on our actions? Let's say we still have, or we are in a leadership position, but there are restrictions on what we can do. And our only way to show power and action is to go after the little ones and show them what I can do because I am in power.
Yeah. I'm sure that's part of it. You know, power is a manifestation of a certain displaced energy, again, due to unresolved issues and wounds and beliefs within themselves. So it's always easier to go for the underdog, the younger person, the weaker person. But then we have to identify that. It's easy to identify with children, of course, because they are innocent and small. But I think we see the same concept happening with adults, you know, that people that seemingly aren't weak, but maybe they are more influenced or influential or struggling or what have you. And certainly there's a power struggle that's been set up since the beginning of time, of who owns what, who's in control. And, you know, it's nonsensical, really, but it
Indeed.
exists.
Yeah. And what are the tools you are using to heal this type of trauma when you work with your clients?
I use a variety of tools. I do intuitive work, so I'm able to help kind of intuit where a person is and kind of some directions and actions that they can take. But we also use a variety of physical tools, somatic body work, energy work, meditation, regressive therapy, EFT, emotion code. You know, there's a variety of different techniques and tools. And I also sometimes recommend people to do things like EMDR or, you know, IFS or parts work or different things. So it just depends on where a person is in their life and what they're experiencing. Some people are highly sensitive to energy, and not a simple, but, you know, a deep conversation with energy work applied during or after can have profound effect. I also do soul retrieval works with people. I do inner child work. And so a lot of my work is about reclaiming our power and our wholeness and bringing ourselves back into the moment, into our body, embodying the I am, the self. And so there's a lot of routes to that.
So
Short answer is depends on where somebody is. Yeah.
yeah. So in other words, some people might react or might synchronize themselves with certain methodologies than others. So you're gonna just focus on those that work for them, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, it takes getting to know a person, you know, that, and that's what I love about my work because I've been doing this a long time, so I have a large breadth of options, and I trust my guides and myself to be able to listen and to kind of sense what the person needs at the time.
And when you mention guides, I mean, I talk about guides almost on every single interview. Do you work with ascended masters or some specific beings that came to you and they declare, we are here to help you on your journey to heal others?
I've definitely had experience in communication with guides like that. And this may sound uh, pedestrian in a way, but I don't get too hung up on the who. I definitely tune into my ancestors and different people in my life. But when I'm working with a client, I also invite their guides in. And so my way of seeing, like I kind of do astral travel, remote viewing, and I'm using their field and their guides as information so that I can see into that. But with mine, I don't know. It's just there's a team of people. It's hard. They're hard to describe, and I don't even care to name them, if you will, because I just have a relationship with them and Trust it.
Yes, it's pretty much like what the shamans say. I know I can do it. I don't know how I do it, and I don't care. I just know I can.
Exactly.
And I look
Right.
at the results, and this is what counts. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you mentioned soul retriever. What are the instances when the soul wanders away and we have to bring it back?
It can happen quite frequently in traumas, as we mentioned before. It can also happen in any kind of distressing or overwhelming experience. Sometimes I've noticed with clients, if there's a lot of emotional transition, for example, maybe at a certain time, and it doesn't even have to be in our youth, it can be in an adult state. If we lose our grounding and have too much to process at one time or feel unsafe, or just like I said, a lot of different kind of factors happening, then parts of us can split or separate. And those can be more substantial parts of us, or they can be kind of fragments of us. But it's important to tune into those and to reclaim them and to call them home. One, so that we have a sense of wholeness, but also just to have a deeper understanding of our own functioning, of our psyches, and on our ability to preserve ourselves in this realm and dimension and beyond. So it's really fascinating, subtle work. It feels subtle in the process, but I think it can have very profound and lasting effects ongoing.
And have you had any instances when the soul said, "No, I am not coming back. I don't like what I left behind," and he put conditions to come back?
The only way, my process of doing soul retrieval is I access the client's timeline, and then I seek permission of if there is a part that wants to come back. I never force, I never ask, I never do anything besides be willing to receive with my client. So no, I have not had that. I have had one session that somebody paid for, and I tell them ahead of time, we can't force this. It's not something I'm orchestrating. And I've only had one time out of hundreds where, sorry, there's no parts that are ready to come home, so they're in their other home and they're fine. Otherwise, we typically have something to work with.
And is a prolonged period of soul being a wanderer a cause of transition, complete transition of that particular individual?
Do you mean as far as moving on from this life? Is that part of
Yes,
the
yes,
process?
yeah.
I haven't experienced that. No. Now, I have experienced people who are already naturally in decline of some sort, in the here and now. And, and they're, how do I want to say, part of their spirit or soul is eh, actively kind of engaged and helping them make the transition. But I would not say that soul loss or soul splitting is any part of a transition at all. No.
Okay.
I think if anything, it just causes a sense of fragmentation in the person's life, that we want to work on.
And that person might not have a direction in life. And this is based on what I learned from other healers, so that someone with a wanderer soul might feel lost. And that's why this type of intervention is needed.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it depends on the type of soul retrieval work that we're doing. A wandering soul or someone who has learned how to not be fully present and to operate from a different place of their field and their psyche. That's kind of it's a subconscious decision, but it's not an emergency condition some of the times because it's kind of a preference, if you will. It's like, I'm gonna do it this way and have some duality in my experience here, as opposed to this happened, I cannot handle this, and I'm going to separate in order to keep myself safe. So I think those are two a little bit different things, if you will.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating subject, and one has to have the experience to do this type of work because otherwise can cause more damage than helping.
Well, I think in all ways with healers in particular, you have to do your due diligence to make sure you're working with a good person.
And do you do this work only in person, or can be done over Zoom as well?
Oh, I do it over Zoom quite frequently. Yes, people all over the world. Yeah.
Nice. Leah, I mentioned in the beginning that you are an author, and we can see the book on your right there, your second book. I'd like to touch on the first one, The Fearless Path, and if you can expand on that and what motivated you to write that book.
Well, after I'd worked with so many clients and heard so many people's stories, I kind of decided that, well, not decided, that's the wrong word. You come to learn that we're all so unique and individual, and we all have completely different backgrounds and stories and experiences, and yet we all suffer the same. We have a common language in our suffering, just like we have a common language in our loving. And I wanted to write a book that would kind of not be in place of a healing session or work with me, but that a person could do kind of a self-guided understanding of their energy system, of symptoms, of imbalances, of what to expect, and to tell some real life stories of my own and clients so people could relate to those. And on a self-healing journey, which I think a lot of people are on now, just to have a tool of, okay, this whole chapter makes sense. So I'm going to focus on my solar plexus. And that means I'm going to focus on these things. And so I wanted to kind of write it to help a person along on their self journey, wherever they are.
Yeah, so kind of a self-assessment before reaching out to a
Yeah.
specialist and be able to concisely say, I think I have this type of, not disease, but issues, this type of trauma, and I would like to go deeper. And that will make it easier for you as well as a healer.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do when I see clients is to help them understand their core wound, not every wound that they've had, but their core wound, the lessons that come with that, and where most likely we probably need to focus a certain amount of our time and energy to help alleviate the struggle in that core wound pattern, the vibrational frequencies attached to that, the imprints, the symptoms, the physical issues that can arise. And so, like myself, as an example, a lot of my physical, weird sicknesses, accidents, issues, they're all in a certain region in my body, not every single one of them. But if I were to make a map, it would be really heavy around the hips and the stomach and the butt and the lower back. That's where all of my stuff has happened. And of course I didn't make it that happen, but if I have that information and go, oh wow, okay, energetically and emotionally I must have some kind of resonance here that is maybe a little weaker or imbalanced, or my body is talking to me, and the universe, how I'm receiving and accepting and outputting my energy. And so if I know that, then I have a really strong place where to start. And I think we can all do that kind of self-assessment with the guide of, like, what's the information in my first book, The Fearless Path, and at least help ourselves along that far. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that if we address the core trauma, I think the other small spokes will dissipate, or will at least go lower on the pain scale, and we can address them later on.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And what about your second book?
Well, actually, I had two books come out one time, a spiritual journal for women and then Overcoming Toxic Emotions. So we can talk about this one. This book dives a little bit deeper into the emotional energetic imprints that we develop and form according to our learned experience and absorbed experience, more so in our youth, and the emotional addictions that go with that and the frequencies that are attached to that, so that we can learn how to release the grip of those addictions and those frequencies and come into a higher state, a more conscious state, and attract and manifest more of what we actually want in our lives. Because there's a lot of people well into their adult years, even into their senior years, that are having similar, if not the same kinds of relationships, experiences, circumstances in their life. And they're going, I don't know, this is just the way I am. This is just the way it is. This is just what happens to me. And they're not aware of how they're controlling a lot of the narrative based on these subtle but very powerful energetic connections and frequencies that are attuned to a lower vibrational source that's attached to their limited beliefs and their core wounds. So that's what overcoming toxic emotions is about.
And do you find that these days people are more willing to open up to their past trauma and open up to healing?
Oh, yes. I find that is true, definitely. I think it's still a challenge for most people to focus on self and release the blame.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that could be because the family is, or the environment is something that holds them back, or yet they are afraid to peel off the onion and see what's inside.
Well, I think we're just conditioned to be very external focused people, and the mind wants to make sense of things. And so, if I can understand why or who or how something happened and what was connected to that, then it satisfies a little bit of my ego mind. And then I can make sense of it and think I'm going to feel better. But the truth is that just knowing that, one, it keeps us connected to the person or the event or the circumstance outside of us. It doesn't change anything about our emotional body or our energetic body really that much at all. So now we're still kind of in conflict with ourselves because, like, well, I should feel better because I know why I feel the way I feel, but I don't actually feel any different. And so my thing is, we have to get out of the head, out of the ego space, and into the lived experience, the felt experience of it, which includes the energy frequency of it, and explore from that state so we can actually make changes there and come into meet a place where we want to be now.
Yes, indeed. And what I think is amazing these days is that more and more healers like yourself are coming out. They are accepting their purpose in life, and they are publicly talking about their capabilities. And people have a lot of variation to choose from, and especially healers. And that should give them the courage to also step forward and heal themselves, because otherwise they will continue on the same path as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's true.
Leah, I would like to switch to, I assume, a very interesting story from your perspective, the Within Street story, the house you bought and which was haunted. Please give us more
Yeah.
details.
Oh gosh, where to start? Well, I wrote a screenplay that I'm pitching and a one-woman show about this story because it was so um, well, fascinating, I guess. I bought this house and it was 1838. It was built, the majority of it was built. And um, I didn't realize that at the time. I was kind of, I had rose colored glasses on and I just thought, oh, I can get this house at a pretty, even though it needed a lot of work, at a pretty good price. And it was COVID. I moved in on the day of COVID lockdown and found myself in this almost 200-year-old house with visitors. Yeah, and some were beautiful, sweet, energetic beings, but there was one that would visit me in my dream time, and he was very, very aggressive and challenging. And it took me months, if not over a year, to fully get that under control.
And have you done it yourself, or you brought in external help?
Well, I've done it myself because I did get several readings from people, and I had some Ghostbusters come over and, all the things, but they actually wouldn't do it. They told me I had to do it. Um, And after I got the readings from different mediums and kind of tuned in, I kind of felt like it was my job to do it, that I was brought there to change not just the energy of my house, but that whole kind of area. And so that's what I did. I spent my time and energy doing that. It was a lot. Yeah.
And did you find out if the beings used to live in the house or they were living on the land prior to the house being built?
I haven't found that out. That's one of the few mysteries that remains. I feel that this energy was very set on being there, but not necessarily because he owned the house, either that he was there as part of the time period of the house in some capacity, or perhaps he was there on the land. It was revealed both in my dream time and in the Ghostbusters simultaneously said there was a burial pit next to my house on the hillside. And so there was energy coming from that as well. A lot, and the town that the house is in, very sweet, artistic, beautiful river town. Very creative people, beautiful old homes. And there's two towns on either side of the river. And that whole area is kind of known to be a haunted, very haunted place. But again, even though I kind of knew that, I wasn't thinking about that when I bought this house at all. I was just like, focused on buying my first home purchase. So a lot has been learned in the past 3 years. Yeah.
And were the beings aware of their situation, that they have transitioned and they are not alive anymore?
Yes. There were some little girls there, very sweet. Felt bad for kind of scaring me and causing problems. And I think they're still kind of hanging out there. I don't mind that at all. There's a sweet, sweet energy there. But the gentleman, yeah, he wasn't trapped there. I think he just kind of claimed that space as his own. He wanted to be there.
Yes, sometimes they can be scary, as you said, and stubborn. They don't want to leave because they not necessarily possess us, but they are possessed of the land or the building or the space, and they don't like to be disturbed.
Yes, that was certainly the case. And every time my boyfriend came to visit or stayed over, that was when the majority of the really scary stuff happened. It was kind of like this presence was jealous or mad, that there was another masculine energy there. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you are working on an interesting project, the Light Night of the Soul. How this idea came to you?
Well, actually, when I was in the house, there was a public speaking school across the street, a very well-known school, and I didn't know about it. But I had some time because it was just, at the end of COVID, and I thought, well, that's something I've always wanted to do. So I went to the school and I wrote a keynote thinking I was going to do speeches, which I do. I do a lot of teaching and seminars and things, and wanting to just hone my skills. And out of that keynote, I started telling this concept of embracing the darkness and learning how to work with our own inner wounds and traumas and the shadow part of ourself and that kind of thing. And I learned after I had written the piece that I don't think this is a keynote speech. I think this is a show. And so I'd never done a one-woman show. I've never done anything like it in the theater. But I checked kind of with the people at that school and they said, yeah, I think this is going the route of a show. And so I started working with a theater coach and rewriting the script a little bit and thought, I think there's something here. I think it's a new creative way for me to teach and to share wisdom and embody it from a place of this is what I've gone through and share that vulnerable piece with people that will really be impactful. So I'm hoping it will be. We'll see. We'll see on Thursday night.
Wow, so close. So in other words, it's not a comedy show. It's a very serious, profound, lesson learned type of show.
Yeah, we're calling it therapeutic theater. There's moments of humor for sure. And there's music and there's videos and images and all kinds of stuff, but it is based on some heavy stuff for sure.
And does the show include the idea of dark comes in the absence of light?
Yes, there is some teaching in there about the wisdom and the medicine of darkness, and the darkness being that space of incubation and creativity and restoration and healing. And as you know, and I think we all know, but we forget that we need the obstacles in a space to bounce and reflect the light, or else we don't see the light, right? And so our relationship with light and dark is really, it's gotten so murky, displaced, fear-based driven, that part of my mission is to help a person, at least even if it's just on the personal level, to not be so afraid of the dark. And yeah, so that's part of the mission.
And have you tried a dark room retreat or are planning to do one?
I'm not sure yet. In the show, I don't want to ruin the surprise of the show, but there's, just a few moments where we're blacking out. And I want to see how people respond to that. It's a few minutes actually, but so we'll see. I don't feel the need to like envelop the darkness in that way. I mean, I come from Native American history or, background, and I love like a sweat lodge and, and I love silent retreats and that kind of thing. But at this point, for my teaching, I'm not feeling a need to have that kind of an immersive experience, but maybe someday we'll see. Right now, I'm trying to get the show off the ground and get a movie sold and another book written, so that it's kind of enough to do.
Yes, and I can predict and I can give it in writing that 2 seconds after the darkness will fall, they will turn on their phones. So you might want to tell them, leave your phone at home if you really want to have the
Right.
complete darkness.
Right. Yeah.
And how was your experience with the sweat lodge?
Oh, I love a sweat lodge. I haven't been in a while because I don't know. Well, actually, I just recently found a good person in my area now, but I used to do them in Kentucky and Indiana when I lived down there. Yeah, I love it. I think, if you prepare for it, you can have a better experience. And maybe they're not for everyone, but I certainly resonate with that.
And have you tried any other shamanic or indigenous ceremonies?
So let's see. I wouldn't say so much in ceremony form with groups, but certainly individuals. Yeah.
Interesting. Leah, what's your perception of God?
Big question. My perception of God is parental in a way, but not single figure. It's an energy and source that feels all encompassing, and it's a comfort place for me that is woven into this matrix that is hard for us, or at least for me, to wrap my head around. But I definitely view God as the source and the creator of this majesty that we call life.
Yes, and I recently talked to one of my guests about her puzzlement when she started to consider God a she. Do you care if you put a gender to the notion of God, even he or she, or doesn't matter?
I don't care. No, I don't think it matters. Again, that even the definition of, or trying to identify a gender base is so limited, and I don't believe that that's the way God is. So how could it be? How could it be if that's not the concept of God in the first place?
I agree. It's all that energy and love that surrounds us that matters, and the shining light that we should follow in our life, and we're gonna be fine.
Yes.
And I assume that everything you do it with leading from the heart. How important is that for every single one of us to put heart in the center of what we do on a daily basis?
Well, so I want to just correct you. I would say everything that I do consciously, I lead from the heart, but I am a human being, and there are moments where my heart is not leading. Um, but I think that that is what we are all seeking, is to be, we can call it peace, we can call it healing, we can call it uh, enlightenment, we can call it a million different things. But I think what our desire is that longing to have fully opened and awakened hearts. And from that place, it is all that matters. It is the truth. And so we're all striving to try to learn how to do that, and I think it's critical that if we were living in a heart-based society, oh my gosh, I mean, that's what I feel like heaven is, or afterlife is. I feel like it's just a heart-based experience.
Yes, I was about to say that heaven on earth,
Yeah.
but
Right.
we cannot have that because duality is still something then that runs our daily lives and the society overall, and we have to adjust, be on and off the heart,
Yes.
but on as much as possible.
Yeah. Right.
I also know that you organize retreats and you offer other services. Let's talk about those. Are you planning any retreats this year?
Probably in the fall. Actually, I have one private retreat in September, and I'll open up a public retreat sometime this fall. But so much of my energy has been going to this show that I haven't had a lot of time. But typically, 2 or 3 times in a year, I'll either do a day retreat or a weekend retreat, either in New Jersey or New York or some region. And I'm hoping to expand the location of those. I love leading retreats, but it doesn't feel like all that I want to do. So this direction with the show and the movie, that feels kind of more aligned with where I'm going now, as opposed to retreats. But again, open, and we'll see how that comes about.
And based on the success of the show, are you planning to make it an itinerary show, some like all over the USA?
Yes, and perhaps beyond the USA. So that's after I deliver this premiere, I've got to figure out how to do that. How to bring the show on tour.
Yeah, that will be very interesting because these are live teachings, and you have to be in front of the audience, see how the audience will react. And at the end of the show, do you have any Q&A session where people can ask you questions live?
I will for sure. This particular show, no, because it's delivered in kind of a standard, hour and a half theater performance, but we are having a reception afterwards. But typically, yes, I love the Q&A portion. And I'm also having on my website a private page for people who came to the show to see more images and to leave their feedback or to ask questions and, participate that way. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
because if you take their feedback and you can write another book based on what they learned, how the show impacted them, either when they saw the show or later on applying the teachings you mentioned. And that will be very telling, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it will be. I'm excited to see the feedback.
Leah, anything else you'd like to share with us based on your plans and your services?
Not really. I think, well, just I love to connect with people. So I teach, a lot on Insight Timer and offer as much free or low cost things, whether they're meditations or courses and that kind of thing. So um, I just urge people, if they reach out to me, if you feel connected or if you need support, help, healers, guidance, please find somebody that can be with you on your journey. I think that's important.
Yes, I always recommend that look for the healer you are going to resonate with and stick to it, or stick to him, stick to her, and heal yourself, because that's why you are here, to heal in this lifetime.
Yes.
We're approaching the end of the interview. Any final thoughts?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. Thank you. And for your wisdom and your dedication to your followers.
Thank you very much, and good luck with the show and the book and the movie.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Like it, comment, visit spiritualinspired.ca. And until next time, love and gratitude.